So the Louvre just got robbed. The Louvre, the most famous museum in the world, the place that has the Mona Lisa, the place that gets 9 million visitors a year. Someone just walked in there and stole $88 million worth of crown jewels like they were picking up groceries. And the best part, it took them 8 minutes. 8 minutes to pull off what's being called the theft of the decade. I've spent longer trying to figure out what to order for dinner. Let me paint you a picture of how this went down, because it's genuinely the most low-effort, high-reward crime I've ever heard of. On October 19th, 4 guys decided they wanted some French crown jewels. Not a bad goal, I respect the ambition. So what did they do? Did they spend months planning an elaborate Ocean's 11 style heist with tunnels and electromagnetic pulses and computer hackers? No, they stole a furniture lift truck, just straight up took it from a company 9 days earlier. And on that Sunday morning, they drove this truck right up to the side of the Louvre, put some traffic cones around it like they were doing construction work, and just climbed up to a second floor window. This is in central Paris. In broad daylight, at 9:30 in the morning, the museum was already open. There were visitors inside, and these guys just parked a giant truck with a crane on it right next to one of the most valuable buildings in human history, and nobody thought that was weird. They were wearing yellow vests, the kind construction workers wear, so everyone just assumed it was legit. That's it. That was the disguise. A yellow vest, the same thing you can buy at any hardware store for like $15. They get up to the window, they force it open, they're inside the Apollo gallery where the crown jewels are kept. Alarms start going off immediately. Security is alerted, and you know what these guys do? They pull out disc cutters and just start cutting through the display cases. Not even trying to be subtle about it, just full volume grinding through glass while alarms are screaming. They smash open the cases, grab 8 pieces of jewelry including tiaras and earrings worn by actual French empresses, and they're out the window in 4 minutes. 4 minutes inside the museum. The whole thing from start to finish was under 8 minutes. They hop on motorcycles that were waiting for them and they're gone. Just vanish into Paris traffic. They did leave behind one crown that broke when they were grabbing it, probably because they were in such a rush, so at least France got one piece back. That's something. It's like if someone robbed your house and accidentally dropped your TV remote on the way out. Thanks for that, I guess. Now here's where it gets even better. There's this Associated Press photo that was taken right after the heist. It shows French police blocking off the entrance to the museum, standard crime scene stuff, but in the frame, there's this guy walking past, and this guy is dressed like he stepped out of a 1940s detective movie. Full suit, tie, long coat, and a fedora. A fedora. In 2025, the photographer took the shot thinking it was just a decent image showing the police response, nothing special, but the internet saw this photo and immediately decided this had to be a French detective working the case. The post went viral, got over 5 million views. People are calling him Inspector Clouseau, making jokes about how French detectives dress like film noir characters. The whole thing became this massive meme, and the photographer is just like, no, that was literally just some guy walking away from the museum when they evacuated everyone. He was probably there to see the Mona Lisa and got kicked out because someone stole some jewelry. Wrong place, wrong time became an internet sensation. The Paris prosecutor's office, when asked if this was actually a detective, said they'd rather keep the mystery alive with a winky face emoji, which is honestly the most French response possible. But while everyone was having fun with the fedora detective, the actual situation in France was getting ugly, because this heist exposed some serious problems. First of all, the security at the Louvre was apparently held together with duct tape and good vibes. A leaked report revealed that a third of the rooms in that section of the museum had no security cameras. None. We're talking about a building that houses some of the most valuable artifacts in human history, and whole sections of it were just not being monitored. The security protocols were outdated. When the alarm went off, the old system used to automatically hide the display cases in a safe built into the floor. That would have saved everything. But they replaced those cases in 2019 with new modern ones that didn't have that feature. Progress. Museum staff had been complaining about this for years. They went on strike in June, months before the heist, specifically because they were understaffed and the security situation was getting worse. The museum director, Laurence Descartes, had actually requested a full security audit back in 2021. The audit happened, recommendations were made, and according to the culture minister, those recommendations were just starting to be implemented at the time of the robbery. Just starting 4 years later. That's the kind of urgency you want when protecting irreplaceable national treasures. And then the political situation went completely off the rails. See, Laurence Descartes is the Louvre's first female director, and last year she hired Dominique Buffin as the museum's first female security chief. Buffin had over 20 years of experience in police work and museum security with the Ministry of Culture. She'd been working in this field since 2001. By any measure, she was qualified for the job, but when this heist happened, certain politicians immediately started claiming that both women were diversity hires, that they were only appointed because of a feminization policy, and that competence was sacrificed for gender representation. Marion Maréchal, a far-right politician, said France had become the laughingstock of the world and demanded both women resign immediately. Other politicians piled on, saying this proved that prioritizing diversity over merit puts national heritage at risk. risk. This talking point jumped across the Atlantic and got picked up by conservative media in the US, where people started using this as proof that DEI policies cause disasters, which is a wild take when you consider that the Louvre has been robbed multiple times throughout its history, including back in 1911 when the Mona Lisa was stolen. That was way before anyone was talking about diversity hiring. Unless we're going to claim that the guards in 1911 were also diversity hires, this argument doesn't really hold up. The reality is that the security failures had nothing to do with who was in charge and everything to do with years of underfunding, understaffing, and ignored warnings from basically everyone who worked there. The security chief could have been literally anyone, and this probably still would have happened because the problems were systemic, but it's easier to blame individuals, especially when you can tie it to a political narrative you already didn't like. The French government, for their part, has admitted they messed up. The justice minister straight up said, "We failed" on national radio. Culture minister Rachida Dati acknowledged it was incredibly painful for France and called it a wound to the nation. They've ordered security reviews at every major museum and cultural site in the country. They're fast-tracking improvements that should have been done years ago. Which is great, but it's also kind of like locking the barn door after the horse has already left and opened a successful farm in another country. As of today, October 26th, French police have arrested 2 suspects. One of them was about to board a flight when they grabbed him. Both are reportedly from the Paris suburbs and have previous robbery convictions. Over 100 investigators are working this case, but 8 pieces of jewelry are still missing. These aren't things you can just sell on eBay. They're so famous and so distinctive that any legitimate buyer would immediately know they're stolen. So either these thieves have a private collector lined up who doesn't care, or they're planning to hold them for ransom, or they're going to melt them down for the gold and gems, which would be a tragedy because these pieces have been around for 200 years. Here's my takeaway from all of this. When something goes wrong, especially something embarrassing in public, there's this immediate instinct to find someone to blame, and the easiest targets are always the people who are different in some visible way. It's convenient, it fits into pre-existing narratives, it lets everyone avoid the harder conversations about systemic failures and long-term negligence. But the Louvre wasn't robbed because 2 women were in leadership positions. It was robbed because security had been underfunded for years, because staff kept raising concerns that were ignored, because recommended improvements weren't implemented, and because 4 guys realized they could literally just park a truck and walk in. This should be a wake-up call about how we protect cultural heritage and whether we're taking it seriously enough. Instead, it became a fight about diversity policies, and while everyone argued about that, the actual jewels are still missing. The people who robbed the Louvre didn't care about the politics of who was running security. They cared that there were obvious vulnerabilities that nobody had fixed. That's the real scandal here. Anyway, they'll probably recover most of the jewels eventually. These things have a way of surfacing, and hopefully France actually follows through on improving security at their museums before someone decides to try this again. Because if you can rob the Louvre in 8 minutes with a furniture truck and some yellow vests, that's a problem that goes way beyond who's sitting in the director's office. That's about it. See ya.